Let's just get started. It's 12:30, so I wanted to start off early. And so, today's class, I believe, is Basics of Budgeting Q&A. Okay, so we have two individuals here. Dean Benyon, let me introduce him first, since he's first, okay? He's the managing partner and co-founder of Kimball Creek Partners. He has over 37 years of experience as a financial advisor. He works with successful professionals, business owners, executives, retirees, and their families to provide investment advice and personalized portfolio management services. He enjoys learning about people and helping them pursue their most important goals. Additionally, Dean teaches personal finance classes at the University of Washington, Tacoma, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. In addition, we also have here Kirk Manlin. He also will be teaching the same course here at University of Washington, Tacoma in the winter quarter. And Kirk's service at Milgar School of Business surrounds financial literacy, as well as so much other things. It's incredible how much he does here at our school. But in addition to instructing classes, Kirk advises the Finance Club and works with the educational team to develop, present, and fund programs of the Milgar School of Business and the Financial Wellness Lab. And so I just want to say welcome and thank you for taking your time to be here with us today. So as I mentioned, the topic today is about basics of budgeting Q&A. And instead of like me being here telling you like how to budget, I just wanted to pick the brains of smart individuals and professionals of who actually works in this area, every day in and day out. And so when I first started here, Center for Financial Wellness, one of the advisors shared a quote with me, and I'm learning that's actually a very well-known quote. And it says that what gets measured gets managed. And like when I first heard that, I can't believe I've never heard of it before. It was very profound to me. But that's exactly the reason why budgeting matters. Because when we track where our money goes, we actually, it takes some of that power to us to actually help us manage it better. And then we make more confident decisions because it provides us with knowledge of like where our money is going. And it helps us to move closer to our financial goals. And so just along that line, I just want to pose the first question to you guys. From your perspective as an investment professional, how does budgeting connect to long-term financial success? And so we'll start with that question. And we'll start with Dean, and then we'll go to Kirk afterwards. Okay.
Great question. Mm-hmm. Can I ask a question of you guys first? How many of you have a budget? Good for you. It's the only thing that matters. Is that fair? Yeah. Kirk and I have spent our careers working with wealthy people. Fair to say? Average people, wealthy people, but I'd say most people come to us, and I don't mean to speak for Kirk, but we've had similar career paths in some ways, so people always want to know, do I have enough? And I'm sure both of us could give you hundreds of examples of people with very similar amounts of money in very different financial circumstances. And it all comes down to how much do they spend. Mm-hmm. We have a mutual friend, Ed Wilkerson, he knows, was a manager of mine that used to say it's not how much you make, it's how much you spend. And that sounds kind of crazy, and we can talk about that more. And I know in our class we're going to talk about more because there is I'm aware that you have to make a certain amount of money. Okay, I mean, if you make nothing, it's pretty hard to accumulate any kind of wealth. And you're all here because you want to be successful and you want to have a good career and you want to help people and all those great things. But in the end, it really is a lot about how much you spend. Because if you spend more than you make, as the little clip talks about, that's it. If you can't figure that one thing out, you will not be financially free. Whether you're a business, whether you're an individual, doesn't matter. When I interview a new client to see if we're going to help them, first thing we do is a balance sheet. Everybody know what a balance sheet is, right? Are we mostly business students here? Well, so basically what you own and what you owe, subtract what you owe, and it tells you what your net worth is. And if it's positive, that's a good thing. And if it's negative, that's a bad thing, right? If you owe more than you own. But that's it. It's just math. If you can do simple arithmetic, you can do a budget. But if you can't figure out that one thing, how to spend less than you make, you will always be it'll always be a source of stress and a problem. But if you can figure out how to spend less than you make, you can be free. And again, I've watched people retire with $200,000 in Social Security and live very happy lives. And I've watched people that make seven figures, so that's $1, $2, $3 million, and be dead broke. I know most of you probably think, well, if I made $1 million or $2 million a year, I would have so much money. I could easily make that. Well, you're going to have to choose between those 3 different club memberships that you have, and you've got these different things that are needs. It's funny, but the longer you work with people with money, it comes right down to that. So it's the only thing, and it's not sexy, it's not exciting, but if you can't figure that out, go back to 101.
Good afternoon, everyone. What Professor So did not tell you is that during my day job, when I'm not here, which is really where my heart is, I manage almost $200 million for investors that, for the most part, saved it from the first dollar. I have almost no one that inherited that money, the old-fashioned way of earning it, and just being born into the right family. So I think well-versed on how to do it. Dave Ramsey said, remember, you must gain control over your money, or the lack of it will forever control you. My grandmother, who came here from Montana just after about 1915, really said it much plainer. Money is like oxygen. If you have enough, you don't think about it. But if you don't have enough, there's not much else you can think about. And the whole sense of not having enough money is stifling. It's smothering, and it takes over your life. It creates stress in a family, and it causes you great anxiety. So the sense of the question, which is, how important is it to have a budget, is critical. The reason is that a family or even a city like Tacoma comes down to a few decisions in life. If you really go back and look at a person's life, there are going to be a couple of key decisions. You've made one of them, being here. I have the Uncle Kirk's 4 rules of life. Go to college. If you do, your life will be meaningfully different. Don't get arrested. Don't do drugs. And don't get pregnant or make anybody else pregnant until you're ready. Because, and the pregnancy really has to do with responsibility, and all of a sudden you have to have a home and you have to have a bunch of stuff. The city of Tacoma, where we sit right now, came really down to one decision. I don't know if you know that, but the Frank Russell Company was right down the street here, and their managing partner, George Russell, decided one day that Tacoma could be more than it was at that time. We started out as a blue-collar town. We had the tide flats. You had the Tacoma aroma. If you've been here a long time, sometimes we still get that smell. Yeah, that saying's been around since I was a kid, which is many years ago. And just before this happened, the gangs had taken over Hilltop, and you would see spray painted 187 TPD, which is that's the California Revised Code for murder. And there was a war happening between the police. Tacoma Police were the first police department that I know of that wore tactical gear. And they would drive down the street and their cars would be shot at. This town was in a decline, and it was going down and fast. And George Russell and Dale Chihuly, interesting, Chihuly Glass, decided that the city could be more than it was at that point. And it was the focus, and the focus in my clients' lives, that I want my life to be more financially than what I the circumstances I'm in right now caused the change. And yes, the city had to come in. A goal is nothing more than a dream with a time frame. They had a dream and they had a time frame and they put all their effort towards it. And that's really what a budget is. A budget is the beginning of you saying enough. I want more for myself. I want more for my family, and I want it now. And I'm going to do what it takes to get there.
Actually really good, and it sounds like like budgeting is everything, and also like sounds like what I heard from your Kirk is that budgeting could help to reduce financial stress, and therefore like we could start working towards our goal. But many, I mean, like when Dean asked how many people currently have a budget, about half the room didn't raise their hand. Just wondering, like what are some misconceptions do you often see people about budgeting that maybe they don't budget?
So budgeting's not fun. It's about making decisions. And in order for a person to make decisions, you have to create goals and you have to give something up. And this group, although the University of Washington Tacoma has a wide swath of age, but for the most part, we're younger, has a fear of missing out. And we want to go to the concert, and we want to go on vacation. And if you watch social media and you see people that are going to a Michelin star restaurant and they're having the dessert with the gold foil on it, I've seen these videos. We all want that. Here's the key with budgeting. It helps you to define your goals, and when you stay on your goal, you will have that. If you live like few people will live for 5 years, after college, you'll live like few people live for the rest of your lives. It's really about the foundation. And so the key with budgeting is it's not fun, it's not glamorous, it's not sexy, and if you have somebody else that you're involving, you can actually have a little tug of war in your family of what is most important, because there are value judgments there. But if you don't do it, then you are going to forever be a victim of your checkbook as opposed to being in charge of your checkbook. Did you have a follow-up?
I wanted to ask you rap really well, like the reasons people don't like the budget. And as somebody who, I've been married, I've been my husband for a couple of years. I'm only 24, but I've had a successful marriage for the last year and a half, so I'm pretty proud of it.
Good for you.
And one of the things that I also noticed, it's really, really hard for us to budget because I have a lot of shame behind it. Especially being young and trying to keep up with the Joneses. And, I see all our single friends doing all these things and over, and that's one of the things I also think that other people get burned from is just be willing to admit that sometimes we don't make the best of decisions, not making that same decision for 1 day, 2 days in a row.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and I'm gonna hand it over to Dean. If you have your goal, no one will stand in your way. The hike to the top of Mount Rainier begins with a single step. But you don't wake up on a Saturday morning and decide I'm going to climb to Mount Rainier. That you can't do that. You physically can't do it. You don't have the training for it. You don't have the equipment for it. You don't have the education for it. You don't have the guide for it. You don't have anything for it. But if you make it a goal and you then think through what it takes to accomplish that goal, you will accomplish it. And so that's this whole sense of is it's shameful that you don't have what other people have. And look, I grew up 116th on Park Avenue. Anyone know what 116th and Park Avenue is? If you're from Tacoma, that's Parkland. Okay, right next to PLU, that's the fancy part of Parkland. The rest of it is what I grew up in. I say we couldn't see we weren't on the other side of the tracks, but we could see it from there. We were on the other side of the tracks. Oldest of 7, on welfare, in a house with 1 bathroom. My mom had 4 dads. I lost mine at age 3 because he just left and I never have seen him since. So for many cases, I'm you. I didn't have the UWT to go to. And I didn't start in college. I started with anything but college. But that was one of my decisions that changed my life forever. And there's actually, later on this year, we're going to do a thing on how to be successful in life. Come to that, because I speak at that more about that. But the key is, don't let others define your success. It's hard. It's hard when you're young. It's hard when you're old. It's not easy when you go and everybody's driving a nice new car because they get approved for the car and they're living in an apartment and they're 45 years old. As opposed to you go drive up in your regular car, but you own a home. Who really is winning? So you define the game, you define what success is, and then create the plan.
I'm going to get, that's great. Why, what was my original question though? It was what misconceptions about budgeting? And I'm going to tell you I think people talk about budgeting as bad and ugly and they feel bad. Didn't I? Can you hear me okay? I'll talk closer. Is that better? Budgeting rocks. It's incredibly empowering. I mean, it is hard to get started, but so I don't know. Anybody ever go to the gym? Yeah. How was the first day? First day is not fun. A lot of first days, right? It's you start and you go and it's kind of painful, but you know what? I was heavier. Can't really tell from my pictures, but I've lost about 50 pounds in the last couple of years. I've got diabetes. I needed to lose some weight. And I just decided I was going to pay a trainer because I needed somebody to help me out to do this. You might need a financial trainer. And Paula, she's awesome. She just beats me up a couple times a week. Well, you know, 6 months into it, I feel great. I mean, all of a sudden, all those things I don't eat and the things that I gave up supposedly, those aren't things that I feel bad about. I feel awesome. I was telling Hisuk, I just hiked 140 miles across Scotland in the Highlands with my wife in May. It was fantastic. I couldn't have done that a couple years ago. Why? Because I made some sacrifices. Was that a bad thing? Well, I'll guarantee you, this first week of working out, holy smokes, that was painful. But it's getting started, right? I've been married 41 years. Congratulations on a year and a half. My wife, you know, we got married. We were still in college, 23. And I know it's amazing that I look so young. But the fact is, budgeting rocks. Don't be scared. It doesn't have to be super complicated. And you don't have to write down every single latte that you buy. Start general.
Okay.
And there's a lot of tools that can help you do that.
You know, just along that line. So, you know, I've never budgeted before. Let's say I never budgeted before. Actually, I have a very extensive budget on an Excel spreadsheet. But, you know, how does one start?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's so easy now. There's a million free tools, right? You can go to my bank offers stuff that it will take everything that I spend. If you use a debit card or a credit card or whatever you're using, it's all taken care of electronically and I can see exactly what I spent at the end of every month. That's pretty simple, right? I don't know. I mean, I hesitate. If you're good with Excel, I knew that my youngest son found his soulmate when he and his wife put in their wedding invitation. They both are passionate about spreadsheets. As a certified financial planner, I was pretty happy about that match. And my kids are really into this. And that's why I say it's fun. Don't think about it as bad. It's incredibly empowering. But just a spreadsheet, see what you make, figure out what you spend, and don't beat yourself up because it doesn't matter where everybody else is. That doesn't matter at all. What matters is you are making progress. You're climbing that mountain that Kirk's talking about. You're making progress. There's things that matter to you. I can tell you, again, I've spent most of my career with higher net worth individuals. I was in the private bank at Wells Fargo for years. I mean, I've sat in with people with hundreds of millions of dollars. The problems are the same. And honestly, they're not happier. I don't know if they're any happier. I have worked with a lot of second and third generation families. I don't know. I like the first generation ones because frankly, you earn it. I mean, you understand the money, but what you learn at the beginning, this process of just sitting down with a spreadsheet, figuring out what you made, how much you spent, and then say, well, where can I make some adjustments? And a little bit at a time. And pretty soon, life's good. I mean, it may not look like you're saving a ton, but if you're saving $1, that's $1 you didn't have, right? Pretty soon it's 2 and 10 and 100, and all of a sudden you got 100 grand in your 401k. And you're going, hey, I might make this. And then you get ready to retire, and it's millions. And you were a bus driver, and right? It doesn't matter what you do; it's what you spend.
So I said life comes down to a couple decisions. I'm going to give you one of them right here. Worth the price of admission today. But before I do that, I'm going to hand these out. If somebody can help me. Promise me you won't look at the front. These are your notes for today, by the way, so that as you're taking notes, you can remember the things we talked about. But on the back, the spreadsheet. I don't love them as much as Dean's children. But what this chart shows is that if you will save $7,000 a year, just $7,000 a year for 17 years. So if you're 21, it takes you to 38. If you're 30, it takes you to 48. You can do the math. So the left-hand side, you save $7,000 a year for 17 years. You've invested a total of $119,000. That's a lot of money, right? By the time you're 67, which is full retirement age with Social Security, it'll be, by the way, never put another dollar in. You'll be worth over $2 million. As opposed to waiting to 17 years and then putting $7,000 a year in every year after that. So you put in $245,000. You put in twice as much money, but it's worth half as much. You put in twice as much money, it's worth half as much. What's the difference? Compound interest. Albert Einstein said the eighth wonder of the world. But what is let's boil it down to terms that 116th and Park can understand. What's the real difference? You start early. Time is on your side. In essence, it's what you said. It's compound interest. But I want to get it to be very practical. If you start early and you are consistent and you stay with it, it will grow to twice as much for half the investment. So the secret to this, pay yourself first. Do we keep saying, well, you start with your income and then you figure out what your expenses are and you spend it and then you have something left over, you invest it. I'm going to turn it on its head. Start by putting 10 to 20% of your income in a retirement plan, a 401k, an IRA, I don't care what it is. Start with that. Why? Because you'll spend all your expenses, right? If I give you $400 a month for a car payment or $800 a month for a car payment, you'll find a car, won't you? The difference, you'll be worth millions of dollars when you retire. And what does that do for your retirement when you don't want to work anymore because you're tired because you've worked for a long time? It unlocks your future. So one way to think about this is spend half of your money, and I'll get right to you, half of your money on what you have to have, the needs. 30% on the things I want. And 20% to save. But save, write the first check of the month out to you. Have the direct deposit, your money comes in from work. The first direct payment to your account at Robinhood or Schwab or wherever you want it to be. Have it automatic, just like a bill. Yes. So that is a very complicated question.
Yeah, that's
What you want to do is sign up for our class, Personal Finance, because I promise you, if Dean doesn't go over it, I'll go over it, and you'll understand what a 401k is, what it stands for, what your investment choices are, and how it works, okay?
Can I jump in on that?
Yes.
These are great questions. Yes. T-Business 250, right?
TB Gen 250.
Yeah, do that one. It'll be awesome. Here's the fact. Whether it's in a 401k, an IRA, a Roth, or you just save it, in 38 years, I've never met somebody come in and say, oh, I wished I would have done the Roth or the 401k or this. That's never been the difference. The difference was the people either started early or they were too late. That's what really matters. So if you can only take one thing away today, right, because we only have a brief period of time, what Kirk's telling you is start now. Start early. And again, part of it's the money and the time. The other thing is the habit. If you can get in the habit of paying yourself first and living on the rest, then as your incomes increase and you have more opportunities, that habit is what's going to make you successful. If you get the account wrong, you still save some money, right? And you may want to fine tune that. There'll be time for that. But if you don't develop that habit, you're not going to make it. So that's a great question, but the key is start early. And then where it goes, yeah, you want to be smart. Go ahead.
So that was the best that started early is no longer an option. I got to 40.
I'm 64. You're not too late.
But are there any considerations like should I be trying to hit something harder, faster? Like,
Well, so I can tell you that Kirk's number of 10%, 20%, those who have taken my class, when I was in college, in my early 20s, I literally went around and interviewed rich people. I just was weird that way. I've always been a little goofy. By the way, as a college student, if you want to, you get a free pass. You can call almost anybody up and say, hey, I'm in the business school at Tacoma, and could I just really, you've been successful, can I just ask you a couple questions? And we'll all talk to you. I mean, you can walk into CEO's office. It's your free pass. So take advantage of it, right? I did, and I interviewed dozens of people. And you know what? They all made their money different ways. There were car dealers and surgeons and attorneys and just business people. You know what was consistent? To a person, they saved 10%, lived on the rest. So I'd start with 10. If you're already there, and you can do more. I tell people when you get a raise, give yourself a raise too, right? Maybe add a little bit, things like that. But again, it's the habit. And it is just like going to the gym. You can't run a marathon on day one. Just start and keep going. And as you get stronger financially, you can start to do more and more. And but it's a good question. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to go back to that habit. If you don't have the habit, build the habit first.
Well, that's a really great advice, but it kind of like makes me think of another question, kind of like, related to that. Like, costs are rising. Our economy is very uncertain. People are being laid off. I have barely enough money to pay my bills. And I hear things like, save 10% or like save for emergency fund if I don't have one. I have a student loan debt. I'm going to graduate with a student loan debt. How do I balance all of these things, short-term needs with the long-term goals, which you are talking about?
Great question. You want me to jump on that one?
Sure.
You just got to do it. I mean, no, you got to find a way, okay? And again, that's why you can't beat yourself up. That's why keeping track of it. That's why budgeting is so important. And I mentioned earlier, look, I understand you got to eat and food costs money. And so, you got to find a way to make ends meet, right? And part of it is what you're doing right now, improving your skills, improving your ability to earn. And that's very important. Investing in yourself. That's people talk about that's the best investment, be aware, read, learn, pay attention to what's going on. And gosh darn it, I'm not going to point any fingers, but we hired somebody this year who just didn't show up. Well, show up. I mean, be that person that comes in early. That kind of stuff pays off, and I'm not going to go too deep into that, but if you expect to make, $1 million a year, what are you going to give up for that? What are you going to do? And so I don't know. But you got to find a way, and it starts with the budget. But it also starts with, if you're going to do a profit and loss or an earnings, income statement. That's what I'm trying to think of. Earnings less expenses equals savings or net profit, right? You've got to know where your personal life is and where your company. If you can't figure that out, you don't know where you're at, and that's why we budget. So we know where we're at, and then we can make those adjustments. There are, we can talk deeper about wants and needs. That little AI music thing that I put together that you're watching at the beginning, I don't know if you can send it out to them. You should listen to those lyrics, because I'm telling you, things about couple expenses that people spend money on, cars. For you, I'm just telling you, cars, they're an expense, and sometimes they're necessary, and sometimes they aren't. Okay? But you can burn up a lot of money in a car. And if you're willing to drive a decent used car now and save the rest, it's pretty easy to put that $7,000 away instead of getting that nice fancy Corvette. Or, I won't speak to everyone, but sometimes we pay too much for show, right? And get something that's reliable, get something that meets your needs, and, you got to have it. Clothes and there are just ways that you can save. Starts with a budget, and just look at them. I'm not saying you can't have a Subway sandwich once in a while, but they're $20 now. How many loaves of bread can you get for $20 and some? I mean, can you still eat healthy and not do that? Plant a little garden. I sat through a presentation from a master gardener. He went to Home Depot. You buy a bag of potting soil and put it on your deck and plant the seeds. You know what the return on investment is? It's like 10x. Costs you $10 and you get $100 worth of food. Probably never thought of that one, did you? You're all thinking, I can't have a garden. Well, you put a bag of potting soil and you poke some holes and grow some fresh lettuce and some cucumbers or some, everybody can grow zucchini, but that really struck me. 10x return. Okay, so there are things that can be done, but if you're not tracking your budget, you don't know. It's really hard to make adjustments.
So I want to congratulate you for being here. Yeah. It's way easier to go out there and find a job than it is to come here. This is delayed gratification. One of the reasons why I like coming here, this is the most blue sky people I've ever met. You just believe tomorrow's going to be better. That's why you show up today. I went back to school. I dropped out of college because I wasn't having any fun. I wasn't particularly good at it, and dropped back into school. And thankfully met my wife, who taught me how to study, which is a true statement. Didn't get my master's till I was 40, So I just can't tell you how impressed I am that you're here, and especially those of you that have gone away and come back. Not to minimize the people that came straight out of high school and this is just part of their track. That's great. That's how my kids have it. But if you're here, you really want to be here, and you're sacrificing today. Keep that sacrifice up. Have a roommate. Cuts all the expenses in half. Get a second job. I always had a second job. I built my first house after college. Why? Because I could get it at cost. We could have never afforded it if we didn't do that. And I was there every day. And I had a second job. And I had my regular 8 to 5 job. 2 days a month, I would work 24 hours because I had to update the books overnight. So keep the mentality of I'm a college student. I'm investing in my future. I am sacrificing for the long run, and just stay on that track long enough and you will cross over. And I appreciate things are expensive. Going out is everything is expensive, right? Rent is expensive. The answer to that is buy a house as soon as you can. But because then you can fix your expenses. But if you can't do that, then rent. But let's start the process today. By the way, I looked at my chart here. The beauty of this chart is you can put in any age. So if you just say, well, I start at 40 and I want to go to 67, you could be worth $500,000 by putting $7,000 a year in for 17 years. It may not be enough. I don't know. We'll see. But what I know is $500,000 is $500,000 more than if you don't do it. So you do what you can do, you do all you can do, and you do it for as long as you can, and you'll be in better shape.
Well, thank you. That's really great piece of advice. So here at Center for Financial Wellness within the Mirgard School of Business, we actually put on workshops like this throughout the whole academic year, and we have various topics that we actually talk about. But the one thing that we also do is something that Dean and Kirk has already talked about before. We have a new class that's coming up called TBGEN 250 is a 5-credit personal finance course. In the past 2 years, we actually did a test run a little bit where we did it as a 2-credit course, and Dean was an instructor for that course. And I mean, like, you taught it for 2 years. I mean, like, if students were to take this class, what could they expect, do you think? And also, what were some of your takeaways that, if you don't mind sharing that?
Well, we talked about things like retirement plans. What do I do with my 401k, my IRA? So there's definitely an investment component, and I know Kirk taught a class all on investments. So I'm sure we'll do more investments probably in this. But we started with everything from budgeting to insurance. I mean, what do you need for insurance? Why do you have insurance? We talked about some tax. We talked about so many things. I mean, we've had some great things. Home buying. We talked about loans. We talked about credit. How do you get a good credit score? What impacts your credit score? We can take that class, and the advantage that we have now we're going to a 5-credit class. That was a 2-credit pass-fail class. Now to a 5-credit class. Like Kirk and I split our time. We can go deeper into a lot of these subjects and really, I think, provide you a solid foundation for financial literacy. I'm going to give you my definition for financial literacy. I think you should write this down. Okay? I don't have fancy handouts. This is a Deanism. Financial literacy isn't about maximizing every dollar. It's about understanding the consequences of your choices. Okay? And that's what we're talking about for budgeting. It's okay to spend money and walk across Scotland. I hope you all get to do it. It was awesome. It costs a lot of money to plan a trip like that. But that's a choice that I made. That was $7,000 I didn't save this year and will not compound till I'm 90. But at some point, you got to live your life. You've got to enjoy your life. But one of the things I talk about is the freedom that comes when you're in control. Kirk gave you the Dave Ramsey quote that's popular. Google financial freedom quotes. Learning how to be in control of the money will change your life, and you will do some amazing things. I don't know. I mean, I just spent a week in Guatemala in June with a group of surgeons. Everybody paid their own way. I was a Spanish translator. My wife's a nurse. We did 87 surgeries free for people. Well, I could do that because I budget. And I'm free to make those kind of choices. Now, you can choose whatever you want to do, whether it's going to the beach in Hawaii, and that's a great thing too. But you can change the world if you learn that principle that you take control of the money. Because whether it's charitable stuff or fun stuff or taking care of your family when they need it, You've got to be in control of the money. And that, anyways, that's what we talk about all those things.
Yeah.
And this is,
I mean, like, there
this
were-
is financial literacy
yeah,
across.
And also, if you take this class, there's a lot of Deanism in this class. And
lot
also,
of
you're going to get a
Deanism.
lot of quotes from Dean. And for you, Kirk, for the past 2 years, you've been leading like a 4-part series workshops on investing and how to get started and all the fundamentals behind that. But now with this class, you're able to expand that and actually go a little bit more in depth. Can you talk a little bit more about that, including the simulation that you do? And also in the winter quarter, in addition to that, we also have an investment challenge, right? And so maybe you could talk about that a little bit too.
The difference in our class from your other classes in college, there's a lot of theory, right? This is all practical. We're going to talk about what happened this week in the market. I'm going to lead the market intelligence part of it. So we're going to do a stock market simulation. We'll be broke up into teams. You'll actually make investments. You'll have a pot of money. We start with $100,000. We're going to see who does the best. The school, through another Professor Chen, is actually having a stock market challenge where you will compete for prizes in cash. And so that, I think, will dovetail well into my area, which is going to talk about how do you make investments, what are the investments, and why would you make those investments. But the rest of the class is completely practical. You'll have assignments, but your assignments are going to be talking to each other about the concepts that we're dealing with, but it's all going to be practical. What is insurance? What do you need? What is your credit score? How do you influence it? What is buying a home? What do you need to do it? But it'll all be very, very practical. And I think that will distinguish us. And I think it actually distinguishes what we're doing here at Milgard from the rest of the universities in the area, is the Center for Financial Wellness. I'm convinced that what we're doing here is light years ahead of what everyone else is, because it's practical and it's knowledge you will put into practice when you walk out the door.
Okay, that sounds great. Does anybody have any questions about budgeting or about this course? Okay, there's a question. Okay. No, that's okay.
So I had a car repossessed. Not much fun. Dave Ramsey, who, like him or hate him, believes that you start with the lowest item you have for dollars. You owe somebody $200, pay that off. Why? You'll feel really good about it. It positively reinforces a behavior, and if you feel good about it, you'll repeat it. That's, by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. I like to pick the one with the highest interest rate. Because here's the thing that's happening, and by the way, I don't know your mom. I'm sure she's a lovely lady. I don't agree with just ignoring it for 7 years because, by the way, it's going to get drug out. They're going to file collections on it in 3 years, and then you're going to wait 7 years from then, and you're never going to get your life started. So either take control of it or it's going to take control of you. So, but if you start with the highest interest rate and you pay that down, you know what you have when that's paid off? You have the money you were making on that payment and the money that was going towards the interest, and you put that, now you double up on the next one. And this snowball effect, and that's actually what Dave Ramsey calls it, is the snowball, will help you to build a tsunami that extinguishes your debt. We all made decisions. We all have made good ones, and we all have ones that we wish we wouldn't have made, and we learn. The key is to learn from your decisions, learn from your experiences, make better decisions, but get after it, or it's just going to haunt you forever. Here's the other problem. I was going to hire a woman 2 weeks ago. Job's going to pay about $100,000 a year. Pretty good job, right? She declared bankruptcy last October. We didn't hire her. I hired somebody with much less education and licenses, because I can't have her telling my clients how to manage their money if she can't manage her own money. Your credit will get in the way. My sister-in-law, Judy Griffin, who sits on the Middle Guard Executive Committee, the reason why I'm here today, is interviewing for a job with the Federal Reserve. They handle all the money in the country. She's going to be in charge of the transfer of money between national accounts, this nation, that nation, and the Federal Reserve banks. If she declared bankruptcy, if she had a credit score, she had an issue, she couldn't interview for that job. So I'd say get after it. If you want to start with the small one, then you have the money you would have paid in those payments and the interest, double up on the next one and keep going. That's a good way to do it. Or start with the one with the most interest. And because they're killing you, right? You're paying 27% on it. It's going to double every 3 years. It's brutal. Okay. And I think it's, and we actually do a class on the responsible use of credit. And I think that some of these banks are taking advantage of you, right? Predatory lending. But bottom line is that's not going to change. We have to change for you and put you on the right road so that you can be in charge of what you want to be in charge of, which is your life.
Yeah, and so the key, I believe, is really educating yourself so that you know what your options are. And really, I think that you talk about that in your class too, about having options, right?
We do. That's not a Dave Ramsey thing, just so you know.
And
That
also that
avalanche
guy-
versus
yeah.
snowball, how you pay out. We do teach how you can get out of debt and how you do that, how you deal with your credit rating. I'm just going to say, do not ignore your credit rating. It's not just jobs. What if you had a chance to buy a great business and you needed to borrow money to do that? Well, what are you going to wait 7 years? Opportunities come. You need to be ready for those opportunities, and you need your credit score to be crystal clean. That'd be my recommendation. It's a tremendous asset if you'll do that. So don't ignore it. Address it. Don't worry where you're at. Go forward.
Well, I only went through 10% of the questions that I have here, but that's okay because I really encourage you guys to really consider taking this course and really learning from Dean and Kirk. I mean, they're professional money managers. They're actually experts at this, and they work with people actually doing this. And so I know that we're coming up on the hour, so I just have a final closing questions for both of you guys. I know you guys gave a lot of great piece of advice already, but if you just had to give one more piece of advice on budgeting, that would have the biggest impact, what would it be?
My advice is do it. It's not fun. It's not hard. But do it and start saving early. It's two critical things that are going to change your life.
My wife went back to the University of Washington Nursing School when our youngest son was a junior in high school. So he's 30-something now. And she just retired. So she hasn't had that long of a career. You know how big her 401k was when she retired? About $600,000. I don't know what she's been, 14 years maybe. You can accumulate a lot of money. But she asked me, I remember she was going, and she was going to school, and she goes, at the time, it was like, I don't know, $15,000 a quarter or something. I don't know what it is for nursing school. And she goes, it's so much money. How can we afford to do this? And I said, sweetheart, this is the best investment I've ever made. I'm going to spend whatever, 50 grand, 60 grand. You're going to make that more than that a year, right? It's phenomenal. Fortunately, we're in a position where I've had a great career, and so we could put a ton of money away, right? But I think she was stunned because I'd never let her bring home the paychecks. I'm not a controlling husband. I just kept telling her, look, you're just going to pay it all in tax. Just put it all away. Put as much as you can away. And so we were able to maximize all she could do. That's a lot of money for somebody who started when they were 50, and now when she's 64 and she wants to retire, she was going to retire next year. I said, what are we waiting for? What are you going to do? More money? What do we need more money for? I want to go to Scotland. I want to go spend time with the grandkids. So the best advice I can give you is what we started this off with. The secret to success is spending less than you make. Be jealous of that. Pay yourself first. And that's not your emergency fund. That's not, the rats, the washing machine broke. No, that money goes and it goes off. That's to start. You can start a business with it. You can buy a house with it, but you don't get to spend that for emergencies. That's another fund. Okay. And if you're not there yet, don't worry about it, but spend less than you make and just be passionate about that. And budgeting rocks. So don't.
Did you guys hear that?
Everybody's talking
Budgeting
about
rocks.
anything else.
Yeah. And I'm going to be honest with you, I love my spreadsheet.
Me too.
Well, anyway, thank you for being with us here today. I really appreciate it. There's just so much more that we could talk about. So I hope that you really take advantage of all of the workshops that we put on here at UW Tacoma. Just kind of look out for those, those emails. And also, we always provide lunch, and so there's free food. And I hope you do consider taking TBGEN 250 in the winter quarter. I'm not sure if the registration has begun. But thank you so much for being here. If you guys have any questions that you want to talk to personally about Dean and Kirk, they'll be sticking around for a while, so I encourage you to do that. Thank you.